Welcome back to the deep dive. I'm really glad you could join us today. We've got a fascinating chapter to explore. And hey, before we jump in, just a quick reminder, if you enjoy these conversations, if you get something out of them, please do take a second to like, share, and subscribe over at the Peace Project for All channel. It honestly makes a huge difference and helps us keep bringing this content to you. We're super excited about today's topic. It was going to be I think a lot of learning and really engaging stuff. So today we're focusing on Genesis chapter 2. We're using the 21st century King James Version as our source text. Our goal, our mission, if you like, is to really unpack this foundational story creation's completion, the garden, the making of man and woman, those first divine instructions. This chapter, it's such a bedrock for how we think about purpose, relationship, our place in the world. And just to be clear, we're working directly from these specific verses. Okay, so let's dive right in at the start of the chapter, verses 1 to 3. It kicks off, "Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them." Then it talks about the seventh day, God ending his work, resting, blessing, and sanctifying that day. So what does it really mean for creation to be finished? And this idea of God resting and sanctifying the seventh day.
Right. Well, that word finished is key. It's not just stopped. It implies completion, perfection according to the design. The whole system is set up. And the rest, it's not about being tired like we get tired. It's more like a purposeful ceasing of the creative act. The work is done. It's good. By blessing and sanctifying that day, setting it apart, it establishes this rhythm, a cycle of work and rest woven right into creation's fabric from the outset. It's a pattern.
A pattern, right, not just a one-off pause. Okay, so after this sense of completion, the focus shifts a bit in verses 4 to 6. It gives us this picture of earth before things really got going, before man, before rain. It says, before every plant of the field was in the earth. For the Lord God had not caused it to rain, and there was not a man to till the ground. But then there went up a mist from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground. That imagery, the mist watering everything, before plants, before human cultivation. What's going on there?
It's a fascinating description, isn't it? It paints this picture of potential. The ground is there, but it's uncultivated. The text specifically points out two things missing: rain, as we know it, and a human being to work the soil. It's like the stage is set, but waiting. And that mist, it suggests a different kind of, maybe more fundamental hydration system operating before the familiar water cycle in agriculture. It highlights a world prepared, but not yet fully activated by human interaction or the later described processes.
Prepared, but waiting. I like that. Waiting for its central figure, perhaps. Which brings us right to verse 7, the creation of man. "And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul." It's so specific, the dust, the physical part, and then this divine breath, this dual origin. Does that make humanity fundamentally different? What's the weight of that?
Oh, absolutely fundamental. This duality is, I think, core to understanding ourselves. We're from the dust, undeniably tied to the physical earth, our material existence. But we're not just dust. We're animated by the breath of life directly from God. That transforms us into a living soul. So we're both grounded and, spiritual, earthly and divine, all wrapped up together. This tension, this mix, maybe that's what defines so much of the human experience, our capabilities, our struggles. We're a bridge, in a sense.
A bridge between earth and divine. That's powerful. Okay, so man is formed, and then immediately the narrative gives him a place, the Garden of Eden, verses 8 and 9. "And the Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. And it's filled with trees, pleasant to the sight and good for food. But crucially, the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil." Right there in the middle. Two very specific trees.
Yes, and notice it says God planted a garden. It's a curated space, not just wild nature. Designed for beauty, pleasant to the sight, and sustenance good for food. Purposeful. And the placement of those two trees in the midst, centrally located, is hugely significant. They're not just background scenery. They represent, fundamental realities. One is about ongoing life, the other about a certain kind of understanding and knowing, but it comes with conditions. They symbolize core choices at the heart of this new world.
Choices right at the center, and it gets even more specific, doesn't it? Verses 10 to 14 describe the geography, a river flowing out of Eden, splitting into four. Pishon, Gihon, Hiddekel, that's the Tigris and the Euphrates. It even mentions the land of Havilah with its good gold, bdellium, and onyx stone. Why all this detail? Is it just scene setting or something more?
Well, it does a couple of things. Mentioning rivers we recognize, like the Tigris and Euphrates. Alongside these perhaps more mysterious ones, it grounds the story. It gives this primeval garden a sense of tangible reality. Even if we debate the exact locations of Pishon and Gihon today, The description feels solid, specific, and the mention of good goals and precious stones before any human economy or conflict. It could symbolize the inherent richness, the pure value of the created world itself. Untouched abundance, intrinsic worth, freely available. It wasn't just pretty, it was valuable in its very substance.
A world of inherent value. And into this rich, prepared place, man is given his first task. Verse 15. And the Lord God took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. Nah, that doesn't sound like just sitting around enjoying paradise. Dress it and keep it.
Right.
What does it actually tell us about humanity's first role?
Exactly. It's not passive at all. It's about active stewardship. The Hebrew words are quite dynamic. To dress it suggests cultivating, working, maybe even enhancing the garden. Human effort is part of the plan. And to keep it implies guarding, protecting, maintaining it. So right from the start, the human role involves responsibility, participation in the flourishing and preservation of this space. It's work, but meaningful work. Co-creation almost.
Meaningful work and responsibility from day one. Okay. And then comes the crucial instruction, the first commandment in verses 16 and 17. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, Of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it. For in the day that thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die. Wow. Okay. Huge freedom, but one absolute boundary with a severe consequence. What's being established here?
This is pivotal. It introduces divine law, yes, but more profoundly, it introduces meaningful choice. Look at the freedom granted first. Freely eat from every other tree. Immense liberty. But the one prohibition, concerning the tree of knowledge of good and evil, creates the space for real obedience, real relationship based on trust. Without the possibility of saying no, saying yes doesn't mean much, does it? So this sets up human agency, real choice. And the consequence, thou shalt surely die, underlines the seriousness, the weight of that choice. Freedom and responsibility are linked from the beginning.
Yeah. The weight of choice, exactly. And speaking of unpacking important things, just a gentle reminder again to our listeners, if you're finding this exploration valuable, please do support the Peace Project for All channel with a like, share, or subscription. It really helps us keep these deep dives going. Okay, so we have the setup, perfect place, meaningful work, clear boundary choice, but then God observes something isn't quite right. Verse 18. And the Lord God said, It is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him a helper meet for him. That phrase, it is not good, that's the first time anything in creation is described that way, right? That feels significant.
Hugely significant. Up to this point, everything was good or very good. This declaration highlights a fundamental aspect of human nature. We're not meant for isolation. Companionship, relationship is essential for human flourishing, and the term helper meet for him, or a suitable helper, is critical. It's not about subservience. It implies a partner, a counterpart, someone who complements and corresponds to him, someone essential and equal in value. It points to our inherent need for mutuality.
Mutuality, not just utility. Okay. But before the suitable helper is created, there's this interesting interlude in verses 19 and 20. God brings all the animals to Adam to see what he would call them. Adam names them all, exercising this kind of authority, but the text specifically adds, but for Adam there was not found a helper meet for him. It seems to emphasize the point.
Exactly. The naming process itself is fascinating. It shows Adam's intelligence, his role in ordering the world around him, exercising a kind of dominion. But the explicit outcome that none of these creatures filled the need for a suitable companion dramatically underscores his unique aloneness. It wasn't just any company he needed. It highlights through experience that only another being of like nature could fulfill that deep relational need. It builds the anticipation for what comes next.
It really does. Which makes Adam's reaction so powerful when woman is finally created in verses 21 and 22. God causes a deep sleep, takes a rib, forms the woman, and brings her to Adam. And Adam's response in verse 23, This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of man. That immediate recognition, that connection.
Wow.
It's an incredibly profound moment. The deep sleep suggests something mysterious, divine action. The creation from the rib taken from his side is so symbolic, often interpreted as signifying partnership, equality, closeness, not from the head to rule, not from the feet to be trampled, but from the side to be alongside. And Adam's poetic outburst, bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh, is just this explosion of recognition. Kinship, shared essence, profound connection. This isn't just a companion, this is the counterpart. It sets the stage for the deepest human bonds. It truly does. And the chapter wraps up by drawing out the implications. Verse 24, Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. And then verse 25 may be one of the most striking lines. And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. That state of pure innocence.
Yes, these last verses lay down foundational principles. Verse 24 establishes the basis for marriage, leaving the original family unit to form a new primary bond, characterized by cleaving, a deep joining, becoming one flesh. Intense unity. And verse 25, being naked and not ashamed, speaks volumes about their original state. Complete openness, vulnerability, transparency with each other, and presumably before God, without any fear, guilt, or self-consciousness. It depicts a perfect harmony, an absence of the alienation or hiddenness that comes later, a relationship totally unburdened.
What a journey, really, through just one chapter. We've seen the cosmos declared finished, humanity formed with that unique dual nature, the garden set up with its crucial choices, the first command given, the need for companionship recognized, and finally, the origin of that deep human bond and the state of original innocence. It's packed.
It absolutely is. When you synthesize it, Genesis 2 provides this incredibly rich narrative about purpose, why are we here? Choice, how do we navigate freedom and boundaries? And relationship, our fundamental need for connection. These ancient words, they still resonate, don't they? They offer these enduring insights into who we are, our place in the world, our connections to each other. It's about meaning, connection, and understanding the framework of our existence.
It really does resonate, which leads to maybe a final thought for you, our listener, to take away and mull over. Given this foundational story about purpose, stewardship, choice, and deep connection, what does it make you think about your own garden? You know, the responsibilities you tend to, the significant choices you face, and the vital relationships you seek to cultivate and protect in your own life. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive today. It's truly been a pleasure exploring Genesis 2 with you.
Yes, thank you for listening. We really appreciate you spending this time with us.
And one last time, if you found value here, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to the Peace Project for All channel. Your support is invaluable. Until next time, take care.